Good morning, everyone. If you have a dog that was going through some really rough times and you know that it's coming time now for them to ultimately go to Rainbow Bridge, cross Rainbow Bridge. If you have a dog that has already crossed Rainbow Bridge, or if you now have a dog that has crossed Rainbow Bridge and you're ready to celebrate, this show is for you. Stay tuned. Well, good morning, everyone. I want to introduce you to our new co host, which we're really crazy about. This is Colleen Ellis. Good morning, Colleen.
Good morning, Kathy.
Hey, we're so excited that everyone has coming to the show. We've already got almost 15 people watching the show. So thank you, everyone. Want to say, oh, my brother's here. Thanks, Ron. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so Colleen, just a little bit, tell us about what you do, and then we're going to go into it a little bit more in more detail.
Okay. All right. Just real quick, Two Hearts Pet Loss Center is a business that was founded, and we're going to go into more detail so you'll know how I got to Two Hearts Pet Loss Center after founding the first standalone pet funeral home in the country. And I'll share a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But Two Hearts Pet Loss Center is an educational organization owned by me. And not only an educational organization, but it's also loaded with resources that are all specific to pet loss and pet grief and the pet death care space. And so my mission and exactly what I want to do today in this show as well, Kathy, is help educate people on this one subject that every pet lover, every pet parent is going to go through with their precious loves. And so what I want to do is I want to help remove some of the mystery. I want to help people design an end-of-life walk that is one of those that we can look back on 6 months from now, for instance, and say the end was perfect. And so that's what I want to educate on today, is this one thing that is a win and not an if in the world of loving a beautiful animal.
Oh my God. Every time I talk to you, I get goosebumps and tears. I call them my goosebumps and butterfly moments. That is just beautiful. Hey, folks, you're really going to enjoy this show. That's for sure. We want to start out with a tribute to those of you that knew Gander. Gander is or was a beautiful, beautiful dog. His best friend, his companion was Lon Hodge, or is Lon Hodge, and Lana's having a very difficult time. So we want to do a little tribute. Gander passed away the other day. He had cancer, and Lon had a long period of time where he had to show him was with him through the transition. And during that time, he had thousands and thousands of people coming to him. Lon is a retired veteran that has PTSD, and Lon has allowed Gander to be a part of his life for the last 8 years, and Gander allowed him to be part of his life for the last 8 years. So the two of them formed like almost telepathy type of a bond, where they shared their bond with other veterans. And Lon was very instrumental in getting other veterans service dogs. So we want to give you a little idea of what Lon and Gander have done through the years. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share this video, and here we go.
And there received training from prisoners who themselves needed saving. Gander in some ways saved others, even while he himself was being saved. There in prison, Gander was recognized as a dog who had special talents and a keen awareness. Somehow he seemed to just know. Some big, strong guy walks in, needing loving, and up he would go. How did he know that I needed that so much? Touching and loving in all the ways he could. God made him that way. God made him that way to show us each something bigger, something more about life than busy human beings tend to hear. Where I stand, we know that these creatures make a kind of soul bond that helps us to come back to our true selves. Perhaps even all the way to peace with God. Will God heal Yander? We probably all think that he really should. It seems fair. The true thing is that life and death is never fair. Yander escaped death row, and then at least one other major scare. Days were given to him. Perhaps we can pray for more days here on earth. Certainly the work is not done. He and his owner, Lon Hodge, have toured around the U.S. in support of service dogs and veterans. The help these dogs give to our heroes is so special and so needed. I encourage you to make use of some of the links that will be provided to reach out and show love and support. From PTSD night terrors to help in decelerating his heart rate, Lon has felt the impact of a very special kind of love. It's priceless. It's irreplaceable. How can one live without it? The only way I know is to place your hands into the hands of Jesus. Nothing else on earth fills that gap. Loving hurts, but it is the only thing that makes you alive. It's never been safe to love until you are safe to be loved. Some armchair theologians say that animals have no souls. But if you look closely, that is not what the Bible tells us. And it's pretty hard to deny. Once you've loved a dog like Yander, every soulish creature, even the scary and ugly ones, appear to be headed to heaven. It's only men and women that are given the freedom to choose. Choose to love him. Choose to meet the creatures you've loved again. Then as promised, never to die, never to suffer, kept in heaven, always, forever. They're as touchable, living reminders of the wondrous glories of God and all that is good and right. It's waiting there for you. So will God heal? That's our prayer. That's our hope. That's what we desire for all of you to join in. We've seen the impossible. Sometimes God does that. Not because we argue or bargain with great compassion. Sometimes he heals. But sometimes we need to wait just a little to see it in eternity. It will happen. It's just around the corner. The next few days are critical. Hospice now for Gander, but life is always tenuous. Pray for mercy. Pray for comfort. Pray for the others who are now facing the same kinds of challenges. Spread God's love. It's true. It's what we each desperately need in times such as these.
Okay. I want to give a disclaimer here for those of you that are not religious. We understand that some of you may not be. Lon is very spiritual and very religious. So the person that made this video, it was with that in mind. I think that what's really important is to know that the heart and the relationship between a dog and a person is so special. And that's something that we're going to go into. Hey, we got a couple of things here. Let's see. Oh, we got, hi, Judy. Good morning. Good morning, Lee. Oh, this is a friend of yours. Love Colleen.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. Love my
Okay.
Lee.
Yeah. And then, I'm tearing up already. Thank you for this live session. Oh, great. And then I'm so sorry I can't watch my therapy dog passed from sudden onset terrible cancer. And this is too much for me to see, but thank you. Oh, Dana, we really would suggest you do watch this because the Colleen will really help you through it. But okay, we do understand that. As a matter of fact, we know how tough it is when you know the time is coming to say goodbye. So Colleen, now, please help us understand, what do people need to do? How do we go from turn death to experience?
So let's talk two things that have already been presented to us. Thing number one is Lon's video and how that was presented, and it took a very religious tone. And so the first thing is whatever works for you in how you honor the life that you shared with your precious love, whatever works for you is the right way. And for everybody sitting on here who has a circle of friends or family members that want to do things their own way, the only thing I tell friends and support systems is let them do what they need to do. Don't judge. In fact, what I want you to do, and we're going to talk a lot here in the next few minutes that we're going to be together, Kathy, I want you to channel our animal lessons. And I actually call those AQ, our animal quotient, a little bit different than IQ and EQ. We're going to channel our AQ. And the lesson that dogs and animals teach us is unconditional love. And they're fine with however people want to do things. So channel your AQ, channel the lesson we learn from our animals, which is unconditional love. And however somebody needs to process or deal with or work it into their world, however they need to do that is the right way for them. It's not to be judged, and it's not to be directed, and it's not to be changed. So that's number one. Let's talk about Dana for a second. Sometimes permission to deal with whatever you can deal with. And if this is too much for Dana and whoever else is watching the show, because maybe a death is very fresh, or maybe a looming death is very fresh, then however you need to handle it and in the manner you need to handle it, then permission to do that. I don't like to rush people. And I don't like people to think that they need to be rushed, that they should be somewhere else than exactly where they are right now. And so for us as companions, and that's the teaching that I give, is how to be a healthy support companion in walking with somebody through the loss of their death. Make space for them to do it in the way that they need to do it, respect it, and let them be wherever they are. In fact, that's one of the rules I have for families. Wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be, period.
Being a widow, I certainly understand that, because people don't know the grieving process. Oh, get over it. You have to do it at your own pace. And it's the same type of grief.
It is.
You're absolutely right. It's when you're ready. When you're ready, then you'll go through the clothes and you'll do the things, and you'll pick up the dog bowls, and you'll pick up all of the things that reminded you. Until that time, be there.
You know, Kathy, I got to tell you, in fact, I have a necklace on that has a paw print on it. And this is for my Miko, who died 17 years ago. And I wear this necklace because it reminds me, first of all, of my why I do what I do, which is this work that we're talking about here today. But she died 17 years ago. And you know what? Her food bowl still sits in the same place. And people always say to me, what do I do with their stuff? I said, leave it out. If you want to leave it out, leave it out. And I always tell them, I said, listen, let's slow it down a little bit right after the death of the animal, because I said, you never know when you're going to come back and you wish you would have kept that one toy. You wish you would have, whatever it is. Okay. And I said, leave it out. And then people always say to me, well, don't people think you're kind of crazy for still having that bowl out? And I said, you know what? Then they can leave my house. Yeah. I don't care. It's my house. And I have the bowls of every animal we've ever had still set out in the place that it was. Because for us, mealtime with the animals, I mean, what dog doesn't love food setting down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was a very happy memory for us. And so their food bowls are still out. They're exactly where they need to be. And that for us is very healing. And it also does this. It reminds us it was real. It reminds us that Mike the dog was with us, and Ellie and Crisco and all of that, and Big Harry. It reminds us it was real. So everybody listening on this, permission to do what you need to do. Permission to do that. And to slow down a little bit after the loss of an animal, slow down a little bit. And if you can't stand to see their beds out or their toys out or their food bowls out, if you can't take that, if it's too much, put it in a bag and put it in the garage. and give
Yeah.
yourself time that at some point your brain and your heart will settle down and you'll say, you know what? I want to dig that one toy out. I want to put that food bowl up. I want to do that. I want to keep those things. My friend Lee, who's sitting on here, they hung the food bowl up on the wall as a piece of art. I
Oh,
love that.
really?
Isn't that delicious and
Yeah.
beautiful? I love that. So slow down a little bit and give yourself time. Now let's talk about, is this grief like every other grief? Some can argue that it is, but I can tell you there's a lot of people that are sitting on this show today that they know that this is a very disenfranchised grief. They know that there's people around them who say, oh my God, it's just a dog.
Yeah.
Get another
Yeah.
one.
You
And
want to
they
smack
dismiss
them,
it.
don't you? You want to
Oh,
smack
you
those
do.
people.
In fact, when I'm working with a family, I
Yeah.
always at some point ask them, tell me the stupid things that people said to you. And
Yeah.
they love it. It's such a release because
Yeah.
they can go, oh my God, my friend said this. And you know what? Let's face it, Kathy, here's what else I tell people. Right now, 70% of our population of the United States, 70% has an animal, which means 30% doesn't. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like the entire 30% don't like animals. There's some other reasons they don't have them, but there is a small portion of that 30% that don't like animals and they don't get it. They don't get the human animal bond, right?
Yeah.
And trying to get them to change their mind when you're in grief because they just said something stupid to you and you want to just throat punch them. That's not the time. They're not
Yeah.
going to get it. But that is the person that you don't need in your circle right now. That's the person who is not going to give you the
Yeah.
respect of the journey you're on. And so my recommendation for families that are in that situation, whoever those people are, I want you to put them in a little box and you put them up on the shelf until you're ready to get that person down and bring them back into your life again. But now is not the time because they're
Well,
not doing any good.
You know, I relate to that. I had a 13-year or an 18-year-old dog that had passed away, and I kept posting and posting and posting about her. And some of my friends would say, well, you know, just leave her alone. Let her rest in peace. She's gone. She, you know, just, and no, that was my therapy to be able to post about her because she was absolutely so intricately involved in my life for 18 years through the good and the bad. And I can almost remember every minute that she was there for me. And it broke my heart to see her go. I posted a lot about my husband when he passed away too. So there's a relationship between a pet dying and a human dying, but sometimes it's actually harder for the pet because they can't tell you during the dying process what's going on. And at least with the human, you get to say your last goodbyes in that. And I think like you've got a lot of ideas of what people should do with you before when they know they're going to have to euthanize their dog. Maybe we should go into that. Is that part of your bucket list?
Well, it is part of my bucket list, but I want to back up just a tiny bit before we go into bucket list. And for everybody listening on here and for the help that you can take to your friends who also have animals, I want you to start thinking about this. When it does come to this end of life walk, the couple of questions that you start asking yourself is, how do I want to see the end? What do I want the end to look like? And, you know, I'll flash back to getting a terminal diagnosis on one of my dogs from the veterinarian. And when she brought it up and she said, you know, Colleen, I think we should talk about euthanizing Big Harry. And I looked at her and I said, we're not going to talk about euthanizing Big Harry. I said, because my goal for Big Harry is that Big Harry will have hospice and palliative care. And I want Big Harry to die a natural death. And so your goal now and your job now, my veterinarian, my beloved veterinarian, your job now is to get me to natural death through the disease prognosis that you've just given me with him, and to get me through to natural death with the palliative care that I'm going to need and with steps along the way where I know I'm going to have to make a different decision because now maybe he's in pain and it can't be controlled. And of course, I'm like any beloved pet parent. I don't want my animals to be in pain, but I also don't believe I need to jump straight to euthanasia. I don't believe that at all. And as a pet parent who is in charge of my pet, much like you are with your skin children, I want to know that I'm controlling the shots. Pardon the pun. I want to know that I'm controlling the outcome of what's going to happen. Now, we ended up euthanizing Big Harry because we did get to a point that it wasn't controllable anymore with his pain management. And so we did euthanize him. But all along the way, Kathy, it was my decisions. It was my decisions. Okay. Now, from the time of the terminal diagnosis to the day that we did euthanize him, there were things that I wanted to do with him through the bucket list. Okay. And so we dug out that bucket list and we started doing the things that he loved to do. He started to get to eat the things that he never got to eat before. Think about it, you guys. Think about that day. And maybe you've made the call to take them out of pain, which I believe is a gift. I know when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like a gift. But the gift I can give him to be out of pain and to have him eating a piece of steak through that process, or eating a cookie or chocolate, all the things that he couldn't eat. Guess what? He got to eat them all.
Now you get, yeah.
He got to eat them all.
Do you want to show the bucket list now?
We can show the bucket list. And so what I put together for all of our listeners here is a tutorial on how to create their own bucket list. What can you do? What are the things? And Kathy's already mentioned this, but I want to kind of touch on this again. I want you to stop and think for a minute, because death is a when, not an if, for everything in our world, for us and for our pets. It is a when, not an if. And so if we take some time to step back a minute and say, how do I want to take the end of life walk? And I used to counsel people on this too. I've been in death care for 32 years. I came out of the human death care industry, and I would tell people, what do you want your final celebration, your final party? What do you want that to look like? So it's totally representative of who you are and the life you lived. Do the same thing for your animal. Sit back, think about the things that they love to do. Think about the things that you love to do together. I can't tell you the beautiful stories of people coming to us in bringing their pet to us in their own car because the dog loved to ride in the car or the cat loved to ride in the car.
Yeah.
Give them the opportunity to do the things that they love to do. And so this tutorial that you're showing on your screen, and this is a free download on my website.
I just posted the link.
Beautiful. Go out and download that. And you know what? Maybe now isn't the time. I see some on here that maybe this is a very tough subject. Even if now is not the time, or you're not even close, which I get it, at least download it and put it in their file, in your filing cabinet. And that way you know where to get it. And that way you know where to pull it out. And at an emotional time, you're not scrambling to go find what you need to do. So right. I want to say this to you again. I want you to think about, how do I move death from an event to an experience? How do I take this final day or this final walk or this final week, and how do I create such beautiful memories that I'll remember him forever? How will I do all these things because of him and for him? And when I look back on this time 6 months from now, which this is always my goal with the families that I work with, and for me personally, how do I create all these experiences that I can look back on this time 6 months from now and I can say the end was perfect. The end was perfect. There's not one thing I wish I would have done different. And there's not one thing that in my head I go through a coulda, shoulda, woulda thought process. I want you to do everything that makes that truly memorable, because it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you have a guide for people to plan ahead.
I do. I do. All the questions that maybe you don't know you can answer, don't know that they're out there, of burial or cremation, whenever. Let's just talk this for a minute, okay? The first conversation that I have with families when we talk about final arrangements with the body care is, do you want burial or cremation? And if they say burial, I say, okay, where? If it's going to be in your backyard, are you going to live there forever? Is it going to be in a safe place in your backyard, that it's not on an easement or it's not in an area that may be disturbed at some point? If you're not going to live there forever, Are you going to be okay to leave them there when you leave? And it doesn't matter to me what the answers are. The only thing that I'm doing is giving people things to think about, because I don't want there to be regret in their decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, final arrangements and body care have gone the same way that it has for human beings. The majority of what pet parents are doing is cremation of their pets, because we live in a very mobile society. So we do move a lot, and we don't know where we're going to end up as our final place, if you will. And so having the pets cremated, they can come with us. I know my pets are going to go with me when I die. And that way, every one of those little urns go right in my casket with me, and we're going to be cremated again.
Yeah.
So they'll be with me forever. But those are the things, Kathy, I can't tell you. And that's another thing. I want to make a point of what I just said. Make sure somebody knows what to do with all those little urns of what you have, of your pets.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we get called because one of our little urns ended up at Goodwill. Because the family didn't know.
Really?
The family didn't know that that's what it was. And so if you want those little babes to go with you when you go, my husband and I, our arrangement is whoever goes first, all the urns go in with them, because we don't want to run the risk of the second person between us. We don't want to run the risk that the kids don't know where all the urns are at, right? So whoever goes first, all the urns go in the casket with that person. Miko comes with me. So she was my girl to start out, and she was mine alone. But you got to tell somebody where these are at, so they know what to do with them, and they know where to put them. Now, I also want to put a disclaimer, because if I have any funeral director on here, they're going to come through this as one of my colleagues and go, Colleen, we're giving you 40 lashes with a wet noodle, because it's not legal to put a pet urn with a human. That's not legal.
How about the ashes?
Nope.
Really?
Nope. But let me tell you something. There's not a funeral director out there that won't do it. But I do want to let you know that, and what they consider it, even though it is ashes, they consider it commingling bodies. Okay. There are a few cemeteries out there that allow it, but for the most part, 99% of the cemeteries across the country, their codicils for their cemeteries say human burial. Okay, so to put a pet in there is not how their cemeteries are set up in their legal agreements. All right, so I just want to make that clear. But again, there's not a funeral director out there that won't tuck a pet urn in, and that's funny, because I want to tell you about this. I know that to be true because of my background in the human death care, and so setting up on the shelf here by me is a human-sized urn that has all of my pets in them. And the reason I did that, I call it my family urn, because I was a little worried when I did die that all those little urns in my casket were going to sound like beer cans going down the church aisleway. Yeah, just saying. Yeah. So we put everybody in a family urn. So for my husband and I, it's going to be really simple to tuck one little urn, one big urn, into our casket so that the babies can go with us when we go. So these are the questions I want you to think about as our listeners.
And we should have a show on that alone, about how to prepare, like maybe you want to have it in your will, you want to have, all these directives. You're absolutely right. That's important.
And I'm going to touch on that one. Not in your will, because really? your will's read way after you've been buried, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I need everybody pre-planning your own funeral, and that way your funeral director and your kids know exactly what your wishes are. So that's where that information goes.
Very, very good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what else now for our guide to planning?
So on your guide to planning ahead, it's going to answer all the questions of the day. Okay, you want burial or cremation. It walks you through. I always like to do tutorials too on how to do an epitaph. I love walking people through how to do an epitaph. And here's what I tell them. I don't know if everybody on here, and if you haven't, let's post it up there at some point, Kathy, but there's a beautiful poem out there called The Dash. And it's a beautiful, beautiful poem. And it talks about a person walking through a cemetery. And as they're walking through a cemetery and they're looking at all the markers and the epitaphs on the markers, what they notice is a name. and they notice a birth date. We're in our world with pets, a gotcha date, right? So they're noticing a name, they're noticing a birth date, a dash, and a death date. And as the poem goes, they said, isn't it interesting that a person's entire life is summed up by the dash? And I just find the poem fascinating. So when I talk with pet parents on writing an epitaph or writing whatever's going to be engraved on an urn, I ask them that. I go, tell me about the dash. Tell me about the life they lived. Tell me about, if you had to say one sentence that summed up the life of this precious little love, tell me the one sentence. And I've got things like chasing frisbees in heaven to, I'll never forget this little doggy named Greta. And she sounded like she was a pistol, because when I asked that of her mommy said she was my little Dennis the Menace mixed with Peter Pan. And that's exactly what we put on her little urn. Actually, I take that back. We put that on a rock that she put out in the garden with Greta's paw print, because she said Greta tore up her garden all the time. So those are the things that I like to think about, is the dash. Tell me about the dash. There it is. It's beautiful. Look at that last paragraph. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Just love this poem.
Yeah.
And so as we think about our animals, I want you to think about the dash when it comes to creating an epitaph. It comes to writing a eulogy. It comes to writing a memorial tribute. When it comes to all of that, I want you to think about the dash. We're so in our mind, we're so pre-set up that when we put something down, we put a name and a birth date and a death date. You know what? I encourage you to do something more. Tell me about that dash. Tell me about the dash. And so the Guide to Planning Ahead walks through all of those things that you can do, including things like taking a clay paw print, making an ink impression of a paw or a nose. I want to talk about animals' noses for a minute, because much of the work that we do, I love animals' noses, and I'll tell you why. In fact, my husband, I wear the necklace with the paw print on of Miko. Chris actually wears cufflinks that have the nose prints of Crisco on them, and we're going to talk about Crisco.
We got. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait to show. You want to show Crisco now?
Yeah,
or no?
Let's show Crisco, because I got a big. Look at that! I got a big 6'4" husband, and that little thing was the light of his eye. Why is it the big guys always like the little ones, right?
Yeah.
And so Crisco's nose is on his cufflinks, and the reason we do noses, and the reason I love animals' noses, is because animals' noses are their thumbprints. There's no two noses alike, and so it's their individual marking. And so as you're thinking about your bucket list and your final walk, is it a clay paw print? In fact, the other day I went over and helped a family here in my neighborhood whose little precious rat terrier was tragically killed. And as I took little Tiny, her name little Tiny, as I took Tiny into my care, one of the things that I had the two children do is I took some Crayola modeling clay, and I had the kids both put their thumbprints into the modeling clay, and then I put that little piece, that little disc with their little thumbprints, which by the way formed a heart, and I put that with Tiny, and that went through the entire cremation process with Tiny. So those are the things that I want families to think about, so that again, as you look back on the time, the end of life walk, as you look back on that, no regrets. I want you to do things, and this is what I tell families too when I help them. I want us to do things that we can't unsee, unhear, and unfeel. And when you look down and you get to see a precious little love who is ready for their next journey of cremation or burial, and what you see is this precious face with a little disc with two thumbprints of two children who loved you, and the big teddy bear who was bigger than the dog. When you look down and see that, that's what you get to forever see. And that's what I want people to do. I want you to find those things and do those things that you can't unsee, unhear, or unfeel. And the things as a loving pet parent that you can say, I did everything. I did everything. And as we talk about this end of life, and I do a lot of work in pet hospice too, by the way. And one of the comments that we always have in pet hospice is when you have a pet parent who says, I want to make sure I did everything. Sometimes everything isn't a cure. Sometimes everything is moving from cure to care. And so how can we make a final walk and have a final walk where we create memories? We do things that we can look back and say, her end was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Now, there was one part where you had talked about yesterday when we were talking about when the dog does pass away, that you keep it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am a huge proponent, and I had that with Tiny's family this week too. And you know, Tiny's mom was not unlike any mom that I've helped a thousand times, and she didn't know what to do. And so therefore my role as a companion, I stepped in and I said, Mary, I'm going to give you my professional and personal opinion on what I think we should do right now. I want to get Tiny ready. I want her to stay home and lie in state at home. I want you guys to have the opportunity as a family to do a service, to do a toast, to light a candle, to share stories, to cry, to laugh in the privacy of your own home with Tiny there. That's what I want you to do. Because especially in that situation where it was tragic, and to have Tiny taken away, even more tragically, to go on to her next journey of cremation, to have that happen so quickly, that's too much.
Yeah.
And for me, even with Crisco, and I know you're going to show a picture of Crisco lying at home, even though we had planned for it and we knew it was coming, to still have him not there so quickly after his death was something that we don't do. So this is Crisco lying in state. This is our final morning with him here, and he's out in our back. You can see the sun, which for us was had a very spiritual meaning of kind of being his path to follow. But there he is lying in state at our house. We sat out there that morning and we had our coffee and we told stories and we talked about what a horrible puppy he was and what a mean little dog he was.
Yeah.
But how much we loved him.
Yeah.
How much we loved him.
Yeah.
And so we not only did we have our time as mommy and daddy, but I know you have another picture, Kathy. Here's the other thing. Give your animals the opportunity to say goodbye to. Now, I want to tell you something. Here's what I love about animals. Both that kitty cat and that big black dog sitting on that chair hated that little dog in the bed, hated that little deceased dog. Okay. And we knew it. But we also knew that they're animals and that this is how they behave and this is what they need. And in typical animal fashion, even though they hated that little dog, they still sat there and paid their respects to him. And so I wanted to know that they were on there and had their chance to say goodbye and that they were with him and that they could confirm what had happened. Because animals do things with their noses, right? And so wanted to make sure that they confirmed what had happened with him. And so there was no question of, oh gosh, mommy, you loaded him in the car and you took him to the vet and then you came home and he wasn't with you again. So now every car that goes by out here, now they're running to the window to see if he's home. And I don't want that to happen. So two things, and I know Mimi just put a statement out here that whether it was the opportunity to have them put to sleep at home, or even, I shared some videos with Kathy, that even if you have them put to sleep at a clinic, which two of my dogs, Big Harry, ended up having to get put to sleep at the clinic, and so did Ellie. But I bring them home. Those are mine, and I can do whatever I want with them. And at the end of the day, and I know we all hate this, animals are our property, and I can do whatever I want with my property. And so don't ever let a veterinarian tell you that you cannot take your property home. Okay.
That's right.
And this is the one thing, and I know we're getting a lot of comments over here, but this is the one area that I even had a veterinarian friend. I got to tell you this story. She's a dear friend of mine, and she's the one that came home with me and put my Crisco to sleep. And when her big Great Dane Rihanna died, she called me at 4 a.m, obviously hysterical. And she said, what time can your guys be here to get her? And I said, tomorrow. You're keeping Rayanna home.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep her there. And to this day, Dr. Kimmy says to me, thank you. That was the best thing I ever did.
I'm going to cry. I did that
Best thing.
with my Mandy. Yeah, I kept her
Yeah.
with me. You get hysterical over it, and you just don't want to let go. You don't want to let go. And when you give them to the vet, then that's it. It's like over, and there isn't closure. There just isn't.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? We're never going to have closure. So let's get that one on the table right now. There isn't closure, but what we can do is we can help with the wound. We can help with the grief wound, and we can at least, again, do everything. I want to, and maybe this is because I'm a control freak. I don't know if anybody's figured that out yet. Okay. And I'm sure Lee's going to weigh in here in a minute, and I'm a control freak. So here's what happens. It happens on my time. Even if death can't happen on my time, I can control what I can control after that. Okay. So they come home with me. They come home with me until we say we're ready for the next step. And then guess what we do? We take them to the crematory and we spend another minute there until we're ready to leave. Okay. Now, I don't have to witness the cremation. That's not something that's important to me. But for everybody sitting on here, if that's something that's important to you to witness the cremation, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I have families who want to witness a cremation because they want to make sure it's just their pet that's in that machine.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Number two, they want to witness a cremation because that's what they do for a religious in the religious practice that they're a part of. Okay. Number three, it's what their culture does. And so whatever it is that you do, from your religious to your culture to your own personal preference, drive your bus, drive your own bus, right? Drive your own bus, do it. And tell your and if your crematory that you're using says, yep, no can do, then find another crematory. And you know what? Everybody on here, here's my promise to you. You reach out to me and tell me what city you're in, because I've been in the business long enough that I know people all across this country, and I can guide you on where to go, and knowing full well that where you do go, your baby will be treated the way that you want your baby treated. Mm-hmm. So no, that's my promise to you. I'm here to be a resource for you, and I'm here to guide you with the questions you should ask and what you should want to know. So here's my deal. If you don't like, and I'm going to just say this up here, okay? The reason that I started that pet funeral home 17 years ago is because the experience that I had and the experience that my precious little Miko had when she died, the experience was not what it should be. And so I can be upset about that, or I can do something about it. Well, guess what I did? I did something about it.
Yeah,
and
you
so
sure did.
I started a pet funeral home that said, hey, people, if you look like me, meaning you love these little things beyond anything, and we're going to treat them like the precious little loves they are, then guess what? I'm your girl. Come to me, and I'm going to help you. So that's why that business was started. And so in your area, if you didn't like, and here's the other thing, when the time is right in your grief process, okay, if we look back and we say, I didn't like how it went, okay, first of all, you got to forgive yourself and make peace with the fact that probably you did the best with the knowledge that you had at that particular moment. Hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah. And if you say, I wish I'd have done something different, okay, well, guess what? That's the lesson that I learned from Miko. That said, on the go forward, I'm going to do something different next time because of what she taught me. And I'm not going to have that pain happen again, because now I know more. So I'm going to do better. Now I know more. I'm going to do better. Okay.
And I love your philosophy also on guilt, because a lot of people get that guilt where they feel, oh my God, I should have waited. I should have done this, the shoulda, woulda, coulda, like you're talking about. Should I have them euthanized? How do I go through the process? So you do learn, but I love what your philosophy is, which is
if you're guilty, what you will, you own it. And I'm not going to talk you out of it. And if you have anybody that talks you out of it, and let me tell you what talk you out of it looks like. Here's what talk you out of it looks like. When you share with somebody, I feel so guilty because I I made the call. I made the call and I took his life, and I feel guilty about that. If you have somebody that says you shouldn't feel that way, you were a good mommy. You did everything you could for that little love, and you went, in fact, you did more than anyone. When people start to say that to me, I'm like, stop, just stop. I feel guilty. Don't take it away from me. Let me have it. It's very rare. In fact, I don't even know if I can tell you, maybe I can count on one hand. Let me tell you, it's a never. It's not a never. But I can tell you rarely, like I said, probably can count on one hand how many times I've companioned a family that they didn't feel guilty. And it's always a part of it, because you always think, man, I wish I'd have spent more time with him. Man, I wish I'd have given him more treats. I wish I'd have taken him on more walks. I wish I'd have left the office earlier and I'd have done more. There's always guilt. It's okay. Have your guilt. Now, here's what else I want you to do, though. I want you to have it. I want you to own it, but then I want you to come to peace with it. But come to peace with it on your own terms, okay? And for everybody on here, help out your fellow man. And when they say, I feel guilty, say, you know what? It's yours. It's okay. It's yours. It's okay.
Yeah.
Here's another question I ask when I'm working with families. If they tell me a story about what's happening with their feelings with their pet, and they get done, and I say to them, I say, let me ask you a question. If you had a friend that told you the exact same story that you just told me, what would you say to that friend? Because there's some things that are happening most often.
Yeah, right.
They beat themselves up. And I say, if a friend told you that, would you beat them up? Would you beat them up?
Right.
And they always say, well, absolutely not. I'm like, then be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you would treat the most amazing friend you have. And you are. Be
Another
kind
goosebumps.
to yourself. Yeah. And it's okay to feel guilty. It is okay. And Mimi, I see your comments right here.
Here, we got a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Actually, can we start with a couple of them here? Because we got, this is from Emily. This is so wonderful that you're willing to share, Cisco Lang and State. Thank you for encouraging, such an honor. So all of his loved ones could pay respect. That's great. And then we've got, Dale wrote, good morning here. And Trish said, I lost my little girl. I have never had to make such a heartbreaking decision. She was fine, then went into septic shock and was gone in 12 hours. Then Mimi says, that is what is happening to me. My cat Kiwi keeps looking for his dolls. So
stop 1 second, Kathy. I want to address this one right here.
Okay.
When I have this happen with what Mimi just said, when I have that happen, and Mimi, I don't know if you were able to get a little fur clipping from your precious love. And if you did, this is the other thing that I'll do. If for whatever reason you can't take the pet home, which that happens, whether you got to get back to work or it's just not practical, I totally get it. You do have another thing you can do. And what I'll do is I'll always have families cut some hair after the pet is deceased, because they can still smell on that hair and they can still confirm. So if you don't have the opportunity, then cut that hair and take that home and let them smell the hair, because it will still do exactly what you need it to do in the same way as seeing the body. It will still do that. I got to tell you, I have a beautiful colleague, and she runs an organization. She's not actively involved now, but there's an organization out in California called Bright Haven, and brighthaven.org, I believe, is the website. And it's amazing. It's an in-home brick and mortar pet hospice facility. And this woman is delightful. She's a little British woman. And she's, I can't do a very good British accent, but it's just everything is lovely. It's just lovely. And she has a beautiful ritual that she will practice. I think it's a 3-day, and I think it's from the Buddhist religion. And it's this 3-day time that she gives the animals to say goodbye to each other. And the cats that will lay on the other cats after they're gone, and the cats that will lay on the dogs, and the dogs that will lay. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. So I just love what this allows to happen. But again, if you can't, take them home. The hair will still do the same thing. Mimi put I have her blankets. And if she has her ashes, sometimes that works too. They can smell through the ashes. If her blanket was wrapped around her when she was euthanized, that still works too. So anything that has that scent that can help. But here's what I would also say to all the Mimis of the world. Now you know something different. And so now you know more questions to ask, and that's life. We get to know more so we can do better the next time.
Right.
And we've got to forgive ourselves. I always say, forgive yourself, because at that particular moment, you did the best with the information you had at that particular time. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Hi, Frankie. Frankie is a close associate of Lon Hodge Ganders.
Okay.
Hi, Frankie. Good morning. She says, having gone through this 2 weeks ago with my Tinker Kitty, age 13, this is a great help. She is our own pet. She is our own pet cemetery. She is with her family. Thanks.
Beautiful.
And
Love
Mimi
that.
again says, I am killing myself over the guilt. I feel guilty over everything. I shoulda, woulda, coulda. It is debilitating, but she's trying.
Good.
That's probably one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. Yeah. And I agree with you. If you own it and you walk through it, it'll be so much better than to try and deny it and say no, and to listen to try and get comfort from others, but saying it was okay. Well, if that was your choice and you felt it was the right thing to do, that's all that matters.
Right. And let's talk one other thing for the Mimis out here too. I want to give you two definitions. I want to teach for a minute. Okay. I want to give you two definitions. Grief is what you feel in your gut. Grief is that pit in your belly. And mourning is the active movement of grief. Mourning, he who mourns mends. Okay. So mourning is the activity. Mourning is grief gone public. That's what I always tell everybody. Mourning is what you see me doing. You don't see me grieving because that's the feeling. What you see me doing is the active version of grieving, which is mourning. And mourning is what you do. And he who mourns mends. So you've got to mourn to mend. You've got to do things, whether it's crying, screaming, stomping your feet, writing a letter, lighting a candle, going out to the cemetery and putting flowers every day, whatever it is, you got to do something. Mourning is what you need to make movement in your journey. Okay. So for Mimi and all the Mimis out here, you've got to do something. So many times what I'll recommend is set in reflection and light a candle and just have a conversation. That's one thing. Just write a letter. Okay. Write a letter to yourself telling you what you're angry about and what you feel guilty about and what is something that's just, every aspect of it that's hurting your heart. And then turn around and write a letter to the precious babe. Write a letter to the precious babe and say, here's where mommy's at. Here's what I forgive. And I'm
going to cry with this. I'm just envisioning myself writing the letter because I would have so much to say.
And it's perfect. That's exactly.
So much to say.
And here's what I tell people.
Oh my God, I am going to cry. Oh,
here's what I tell people, and especially children.
Oh,
grammar doesn't matter. I want you to write the letter and I just want you to puke it all onto the paper. Just get it all onto the paper and get everything down there.
Yeah. Oh my God. All the wonderful things that are coming in here. Oh gosh. Let's see here. Now,
I see Ellen. My mama.
Is that your mama?
And that's my mama. Yeah. Hi, Mom.
Hi. Yeah. Oh, good. We got Jenny. She said, I lost my daddy in February. She was hit by a car and I miss her so much. I have the blanket that they wrapped her up in at the vet. My roommate was taking care of her when she got hit. Boy, okay. Jenny, I sure know the feeling of that. My dog Mandy was hit by a car right in front of my eyes. Talk about going hysterical. I know exactly how you feel on that. And here we got one from Nikki. She says, I feel so miserable and lost inside.
Of course. Yep. Permission to have that. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, this is why I bring up the mourning word, is to say, so what kind of mourning are you doing? What's your mourning work that you're doing? And I always, when I do pet loss support groups, I title it homework, because sometimes morning work is maybe a little cheesy way to say it, but it's, what are you doing? What are you doing at night? Whether it's, again, writing or lighting a candle, and you've got to make movement in your journey. You got to shoot for the day that you wake up and say, today I want to feel hope. Today I want to feel different. I want to know that I'm getting some peace. Now, here's the other thing, as I just mentioned, and I'm going to say this again, there's no closure. It's not going to just go away. It's not going to be closed. It's always going to be a part of who you are, always. And I love that. I told Kathy yesterday, I had a couple who showed up every month for 3 years at a pet loss support group I did in Indianapolis, Indiana. And it's not because they were stuck. No, listen to what she said. When I asked her one day, I was like, Susan, help me understand. I love the fact that you guys are coming. I just want to make sure that I've been of help. And she said, oh, Colleen, she said, we come every month because it gives us an opportunity to remind us it was real.
Oh,
Didn't you love that? She said, for 1 hour a month, we get to talk about her again, and we get to cry over her again, and we get to be reminded it was real. Not that we forget, but it was just such a physical way for them to get in their car, drive to the group, sit there for an hour, and just say, it reminds us it was real. And let me tell you something. I am so blessed with my husband, in that he gets this, he gets my work, he gets what I do. And I even though it's 17 years later with Miko, sometimes something will hit me. I'll never forget, we were out to dinner one night and something hit me that I just started crying. I just missed her.
Yeah,
something happened.
Right.
And of course he knew, and he just sat there with me. But the waiter came by and was like, oh, bad
what's
times.
wrong?
Sorry.
What's wrong?
Right?
Yeah, what's wrong? Yeah. Did you have an argument?
Oh, right. As my husband was holding me, he scrambled off, and so it does make people uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, they're grief bursts. You're going to have grief bursts, and especially during the year of firsts. The first time that things that you don't get to go out and roll in the snow, or the first time spring comes and you're not going for a walk, or whatever it is.
The aloneness. The aloneness.
Yeah, the aloneness. Absolutely. So just permission to have those, permission to have all of that, permission. And don't feel bad about it. And don't ever, there's another big thing that happens when we lose pets. We try to rank our grief. We look around and we go, it's just a dog. I shouldn't feel this bad. My, my friend's mother is going through something right now, and that's bigger than mine. No, it's not. It's not bigger than yours. Yours is what yours is. Love and grief are equal, and it is what it is. No ranking.
Right.
No ranking.
Hey, we've got more comments too from Emily. She says, such compassion.
Thanks
to you
Emily.
both for your gentle wisdom and guidance. We are so excited about doing this show, Emily, and we're going to be doing it every week now, which is a wonderful thing. And here Susan says, Colleen changed my life with her teachings for both 2- and 4-legged, making sense of it all.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. And here, Ellen, she says, helpful show and a great guest and host. She's not just a guest, she's the host now, Ellen, forever and ever. And here, Kathy says, Colleen, your suggestion of clipping fur was so right on. When I brought Cooper's ashes home, I took out the clippings for Radar to smell. He drove his nose deeply into it and whined, cried and moaned. It was amazing, his reaction. But once he was done, his spirit was renewed. That's true. I never thought of that it's the pets as well too.
Oh, absolutely.
That you want to, because they immediately know that their friend isn't there anymore.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Anymore.
Yeah, we've got to give them the respect, and they're pack animals. At the end of the day, they're pack animals, and even if they're all of different species, and or in my case, my cat is species challenged and doesn't know he's a cat. So, but regardless, that's their little pack, and
that's
so
right.
We need to give them, and not only them, but also our skin children, the little children. We need to give them the opportunity. It's think about this as you go through life. One of the things you remember is probably the first loss you experienced as a pet, your family pet from years ago. And so if we can if we can help be the barometer as responsible and mature adults to help children with a fact of life, which is death, if we get to help them with that so that they can now see it in a more healthy way versus in a very scary or something that should be feared or something that they shouldn't ask questions about, for fear of being shamed. That should never, we should never do that. We should give them the opportunity, because children are very good. In fact, children do grief better than we do as adults. They're very organic at it, and it's very natural for them. We just think we know better than they do, and we don't.
Right.
But if we let them do it, they're perfect at grief. They're perfect at it.
So now Jenny says, I have done that and I've been crying a lot. And here again from Frankie, she says, my Tinker and I laid in our bed as she passed
Beautiful.
2 weeks ago. Our family still grieves. The other critters still look for her. And now they answer to Tink's name.
Oh, that's sweet.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure too, Frankie, you probably have some of the toys around, and Tinker's probably, I mean, your other dogs are probably going and playing with those toys or laying with them or something. I know myself, when I've lost a dog, then I would either foster one. And one of the criteria that I would decide about was, if that dog found my dog's toy, then that dog was a keeper. And I would become a failed foster.
Yeah, that's why I don't do it.
Every time it would happen. You know, quick here now, I wanted to show that you have a wonderful, wonderful website. I'm really crazy about it. You have a pet loss class, which I took, and I'm going to put the link here in the description for everybody so that you guys can go and get it. The class is free.
There's a couple of the sessions are free. So actually, if you go up to the education, Kathy, why don't you get on that education tab?
Okay.
Go and do the online education. There you go. So there are a ton of videos in there, how to do a memorial service right now, especially in COVID and with social distancing. How you can, there's so many ideas in there, again, taking them home. And there's a couple of pictures in there with actually an end of life operation out in the Denver area that I do some consulting with on creating a final playlist for your pet and playing that during their euthanasia. There's my big class. Oh, actually it was on the other page, but there's a ton of classes right there. The certification class, which I've got a few of my students that are on here today, which I love. Deanne's on here and Kathy Kinder's on here. Oh boy, if I forgot your name, I'm so sorry. But that, actually go back one more, Kathy.
Okay, I'm going to, wait, sorry. Go back to that one. Okay.
Okay, now go up to the very top of all the, so, let me see. Oh, back one more. I'm so sorry. There's one other page back there. Right there up on the right.
This one here.
There. So that one is 15 hours. 15 hours. Oh, there's Claire. There's some of the folks that have been through my classes. And given everything that's gone on, I went ahead and moved those to online. I will still have, and the folks that are on here making comments right now, I actually hold these classes in 3-day in-person sessions. And oh my goodness, they are off the charts. Number one, I think the information I share is really cool. And I've got my folks that are in here. But what's even more cool is all the people that will share their ideas and the things that they've done. And that's what really takes this learning just off the charts. So take advantage of these videos, and not only for yourself as a loving pet parent, but also what you can do to help your friends when they turn to you and they need help during this time. That's what all that is there for. And that's the beauty of Pet Lovers. We're here to help each other.
Yeah. And Colleen says the pet loss training is one of the best things I've ever done for my pets end of life experience.
Thanks, Claire.
Oh, and Frankie commented that when I was talking about foster fails, they are true. Yeah. You just end up being that. And Kathy says agreed. Well, now the next thing that we want to talk about is I'm going to share a link to, you have for loving pets parents saying goodbye. Now this is, do you want to play this? Do you want us to play this, or should we do that in the next show?
know what? Let's do it in the next show. And that way
Okay.
we can, and if people want to jump out there and take a peek at it prior to us getting back together, that way we can kick something up again,
Okay.
and bring some of those things in there.
Okay. I'll put a link to that particular one in, there you go. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
So let's see now. Are we missing anything else here? No, I guess
Everything's
not.
on here.
Okay, then we want to talk about after the dog has crossed Rainbow Bridge. Wait a minute here. I got to undo somebody here. After they cross Rainbow Bridge, then there's a period of time that comes where people are now deciding, should I get another dog, etc., or what should I do? But they still haven't ended the grief. So it's now time to celebrate. And that's where we're talking about that. What we probably should be doing is, what does the dog do after Rainbow Bridge? It's time to celebrate their life. So tomorrow we are having a Celebrate My Dog's Life online Zoom party, which is going to be at 11 o'clock Pacific time. And the purpose of that is for those of you that your dog has crossed Rainbow Bridge and you want to share your dog's life and celebrate, bring the tissues with, but also bring pictures of your dog. Pull out those pictures again. And you'll be able to share them with everyone else. And so far, I think we've got about 25 people that have already registered to come tomorrow. So we would really appreciate it if you guys would come here. I got this. It'll be Celebrate My Dog. Yeah. And let's see here. Hang on here. I'm trying to do 52 things at one time.
You're pretty good. I've been watching you do that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. This has just been a fabulous show, and I'll leave you with this. This is one of the petagraphs that I do, which I love. And it says, through the years, I've always listened to what my dog had to say. I've always dreaded this talk. He just told me, it's time, Dad. So your dog is probably going to let you know when it's time, and you won't want to acknowledge it. But if there is, and you follow Colleen's, and she's giving you a plethora of resources, and if you follow us every week, you'll be able to get more and more. We look forward to it. And then let me see here. We got another comment here.
Hi, Mandy. Oh, Mandy.
She's been through multiple classes with Colleen, and I'm completely honored for her insight.
Hugs to you, Mandy.
And then Cindy, rest in peace, our hero Gander.
Most certainly. Yeah.
Okay.
And Jane, I just saw Jane's up here too. Thanks for coming, Jane. We got a good group here.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Let me see here. Here's Jane. Sorry, I missed you, Jane. She said, I took the certification class and recommended to everyone. On the second day of class, my parents' dog passed. I was in Texas for the class and live in Hawaii. I not in Hawaii. I would not have gotten through it or known how to help my family without Colleen. Well, see, that brings volumes. I see you're getting tears in your eyes from that.
I love my people.
Yeah, well, it's because we have a common bond. For those of us that are dog lovers, let's face it, we all at one time have gone through this. If you're at a certain, I'm in my 70s and I've had a number of dogs, but I had one dog for 18 years. And 18 years is a lifetime for some people. So how do you say goodbye to that? And there really has never really been. You go to support groups or you see things online or you see books, etc., but not the hands-on way that you do. I love the way you do, Colleen. It really is very impressive. And I'm honored to have you as a co-host on our show.
Thank you.
So
I'm honored to be here.
Well, okay, we're going to say goodbye to everyone, and we want to thank you all for watching the show, and we can't wait to see you next week. If you can make it tomorrow, that'd be great. It's in the description. It's a Zoom meeting. It'll be private. It's not going to be going on to live anywhere. And after the show, if we all agree, then we'll post it live.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Mama, we know there's cat lovers out there too. I was waiting on her to weigh in. She's a kitty one. We know, Mama.
Okay,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody, for being here. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.